Before we begin, if this audiobook helps you, consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who might need a little direction or support right now. We release new chapters every week, along with other life-changing books from Frogplum Audiobooks. Let's start your journey. Introduction. There are moments in life when everything feels heavy. You look around and feel unsure of where you are heading. Tasks feel overwhelming. Your energy disappears faster than it returns. It is not because you are weak or lazy. It is because your mind has nothing clear to move toward. When we lack direction, our thoughts scatter and stress grows. Even small problems feel larger. Days blend into each other, and slowly, burnout creeps in. Not from working too hard, but from not knowing what all that work is for. This book is here to change that. This is not a book that pushes you to hustle harder. It is a book that teaches you how to set goals in a healthy, realistic, and sustainable way. It shows you how to create progress without breaking yourself, and how to build a future you can walk toward with confidence instead of fear. I have lived through both sides of this journey. I have felt lost, overwhelmed, and unsure of what to do next. But everything changed when I learned how to set personal goals in a way that made sense. Not just dreaming of what I wanted, but shaping the path, step by step, until I could reach it. One of my first big goals was simple. I wanted a Mercedes C-Class. Not because I needed the car, but because it symbolized the future I wanted to grow into. I visualized it daily. I placed pictures on my wall. I imagined the sound of the engine and the feeling of sitting in the driver's seat. But the part that mattered most was the path. I built milestones. I created backup plans. I worked the steps. And when the time came, I reached the financial ability to buy it. I didn't even buy the Mercedes. I bought something else. But the goal had already done its job. It made me grow. That same system is the reason I now have a much bigger goal, a private jet. I am not there yet, but I am learning to fly, training for my license, and building the long-term path. The goal doesn't stress me. It inspires me, because I can clearly see how to get there. This book will help you create the same feeling, a clear direction, a practical structure, a step-by-step plan for real progress without burning out. Here's a preview of what you'll learn in the chapters ahead. Chapter 1. Why Goals Matter. How direction reduces stress, stabilizes your mind, and gives you something meaningful to move toward. Chapter 2. The Psychology of Progress. Why big goals overwhelm us, and how milestones give your brain the small wins it needs to stay motivated. Chapter 3. How to choose the right goal. How to avoid unrealistic dreams that create pressure and depression, and choose goals that match your stage, abilities, and resources. Chapter 4. Breaking big goals into milestones. A simple method for turning overwhelming goals into easy, measurable steps that build momentum. Chapter 5. Why you need backup plans. Why every goal needs 2 to 3 possible paths, and how backup plans protect you from failure and loss of motivation. Chapter 6. Stress, Depression, and Direction. How lack of goals increases depression, and why small daily goals can lift your mood, restore hope, and reconnect you with control. Chapter 7. How to build a plan you can follow. How to design daily and weekly structures that keep you moving without overwhelming your life. Chapter 8. Visualizing the path, not the fantasy. How visualization helps when it focuses on the steps, not only the dream. A method to strengthen belief, consistency, and focus. Chapter 9. Staying consistent without pressure. How habits, environment design, and tiny systems help you stick to your goals even when motivation fades. Chapter 10. Building your personal goal map. Your complete, personalized, step-by-step plan for real progress. Epilogue. What direction feels like? A reflection on how clarity transforms the way you think, feel, and move through life. Author's note. A personal message about why I wrote this book and how these tools changed my life. By the end of this book, you will not only know what you want, you will know how to reach it. You will understand how to build momentum, protect your energy, face setbacks calmly, and create progress that is real, steady, and sustainable. This is your guide. This is your map. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Power of Having a Goal. Most people don't realize how powerful a single, clear goal can be. It isn't just motivation, it's chemistry. When your mind commits to something specific, your brain starts releasing dopamine, a chemical linked to focus, energy, and hope. Every step toward that goal, no matter how small, keeps that reward system alive. That's why life feels heavier when we have no direction. The problem isn't laziness, it's the absence of a target. When you don't know what to aim for, the mind starts firing energy into random thoughts, worry, self-doubt, frustration. We confuse exhaustion with failure, but what's really happening is wasted energy, momentum without a map. Having a goal gives the mind a compass. It's not about chasing luxury or status. It's about having something to move toward. A goal says, "This is where I'm going." That simple sentence reduces anxiety because it organizes chaos. When life feels directionless. Think of times when you felt lost. Maybe you were working hard, but nothing felt meaningful. Without a goal, effort feels like running on a treadmill, movement with no progress. People in that state often fall into sadness or depression. They wake up asking, "Why bother?" Because the brain's reward circuits aren't being triggered. Purpose, even a small one, brings those circuits back online. Research in psychology and neuroscience consistently shows that when people have clear personal goals, something they genuinely care about, they report higher happiness and lower stress. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. Your mind needs a target. Think of your brain like a GPS system. It can't start navigation until you enter a destination. Once you do, it begins scanning all possible routes. That's what happens when you set a goal. The brain unconsciously looks for opportunities, people, and solutions connected to that destination. Suddenly, coincidences start appearing, not magic, but pattern recognition. You notice the things that were always there but invisible before you defined what you wanted. Why the size doesn't matter. Many people avoid setting goals because they think their dream is too small or too far away. But every meaningful change starts small. If you say, "I just want to wake up earlier," or "I want to save my first $1,000," that's enough. Small goals build proof that you can influence your own life. Each success raises your belief ceiling, making bigger goals seem possible. So don't underestimate the power of one defined intention. Even writing, "I will improve one habit this week," begins rewiring your sense of control. Personal reflection. When I first started setting real goals, I didn't know much about neuroscience or psychology. I just knew I needed something to move toward. One of my first goals was to buy a Mercedes C-Class. It wasn't about the car itself. It was about building proof that my focus could turn into results. I printed photos, visualized it, and planned the steps I'd need to get there. Eventually, I did reach that point. And even though I chose not to buy the car, the goal had already done its job. It gave me direction, discipline, and belief. That's the hidden power of a goal. It transforms you long before you reach it. The psychology behind motivation. Scientists studying motivation often describe two systems in the brain: the seeking system, which drives curiosity and exploration; the reward system, which gives pleasure when we make progress. When both are active, life feels exciting. When both are idle, life feels meaningless. Setting a goal reactivates the seeking system. It gives your curiosity something to chase. That's why people who lose interest in their work or hobbies often feel numb. They've stopped giving their brain new missions. Defining the why. Another secret of sustainable motivation is emotional meaning. A goal tied only to ego or competition fades quickly. A goal tied to growth lasts. Ask yourself, why does this matter to me? That question anchors your motivation during hard days. When I visualized that Mercedes, the deeper why wasn't to impress anyone. It was proof that I could control my outcomes. It became a symbol of self-trust. What happens when you don't have a goal? When there's no direction, the mind starts creating false problems. You might start arguing with people, replaying regrets, or scrolling endlessly online. It's the brain trying to use up restless energy. But once you give it a mission, that energy redirects. Instead of overthinking, you start researching, planning, acting. That's why purpose isn't just philosophical, it's therapeutic. Small steps, big chemistry. Every time you act toward a clear goal, sending an email, saving $5, writing a paragraph, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine. That's motivation's fuel. The trick is consistency. The more frequently you experience small wins, the more your brain associates effort with reward. So you don't need giant leaps. You need visible steps. Tonight, tomorrow. Micro practice. 1. Write one thing you truly want to accomplish within the next 6 months. 2. Ask yourself why it matters. Write the answer in one sentence. 3. Rate how clear the goal feels from 1 to 10. 4. If it's below 7, simplify it until it feels realistic. 5. Before bed tonight, visualize one small action that moves you closer tomorrow. That's all. A 5-minute practice that begins rewiring your direction. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper. How to turn a dream into direction. How belief, structure, and visualization turn a simple wish into a plan your brain can actually follow. Chapter 2. From Dream to Direction. Every dream begins as a picture in the mind. But a picture alone is not enough. A dream becomes a direction only when you give it structure. It moves from imagination to movement the moment you start shaping it into steps, habits, and plans. Most people think dreaming is passive. They think you close your eyes, imagine a new life, and somehow it will arrive. The truth is much more practical and far more empowering. Visualization is not magic. It is mental preparation. It is rehearsal. It is the act of teaching the mind what to focus on, what to recognize, and what to act toward. When you imagine a goal clearly, the brain becomes alert. It begins scanning for anything connected to that goal. You notice opportunities you used to ignore. Ideas appear more often. You start connecting dots that were invisible before, not because the universe changed, but because your attention changed. Turning wishes into direction. The moment you say, "I want this," your mind asks the next big question. How do we get there? That question is where direction is born. Direction is a dream with movement. Direction is a dream with a path. Direction is a dream with a starting point. Wishes feel good, but they do not move us. Direction feels real because it asks you to walk. So when you think of a goal, ask yourself, what does the first mile of this journey look like? Not the whole mountain, just the first mile. Your Mercedes story, the power of structured dreaming. When I set my early goal of buying a Mercedes C-Class, I did not know anything yet about neuroscience or goal-setting theory. I did something simple. I created structure around a dream. I printed the pictures. I placed them on the wall. I looked at them every morning. And then I did the most important step. I imagined the path to get there. Not the car, the steps, the work, the income, the discipline. Every day I rehearsed the path, and that changed everything. As my career grew and my opportunities increased, the goal became reachable. And when the moment finally came, I realized the value wasn't in buying the car. It was in who I became while working toward it. The Mercedes was a symbol. The real treasure was direction. This is the difference between fantasy and direction. Fantasy makes you escape reality. Direction makes you shape it. Belief is not wishing, it's training. When we talk about belief, many people misunderstand it. Belief is not pretending. Belief is not forcing optimism. Belief is not ignoring obstacles. Belief is evidence. It is built from small wins. It is reinforced by consistent action. You believe you can walk because you have walked thousands of times. You believe you can drive because you have done it again and again. In the same way, believing in your goal grows through seeing even the smallest progress. When you take one step forward, your mind says, "Maybe I can take two." Visualization strengthens belief by giving your brain mental proof. You see the steps in your mind first, which makes them easier to take in real life. The science behind mental rehearsal. Simple explanation. People often hear about athletes using visualization. The reason is practical and well documented. When you imagine yourself doing an action, lifting, running, presenting, negotiating, performing, the brain activates many of the same neural pathways used during the actual activity. This doesn't mean imagination replaces practice. It means imagination prepares the system for practice. It reduces hesitation. It reduces anxiety. It builds confidence. It increases readiness. So when you picture your goal and picture the steps, You are quietly training your mind to take real action. Direction requires honesty. Before turning a dream into direction, ask yourself one honest question. Do I want this enough to walk toward it? Not sprint, not sacrifice everything, just walk. Direction does not require perfection or pressure. Direction requires willingness. When the willingness is there, the next step becomes visible. When the willingness is missing, everything feels impossible. This chapter is about giving yourself permission to take the first step before you worry about the fifth. Create a path you can actually see. Many people defeat themselves because they imagine the final outcome but never imagine the path. It's like wanting to reach another city but refusing to look at the map. Your brain needs to see the route, even if it is not perfect, even if it changes later, even if you only know the first two steps. Direction becomes real the moment you can describe what you will do next. Why this matters for your mood. Here's a simple truth. A mind without direction turns inward. It begins questioning everything. It loses momentum. It loses clarity. A mind with direction turns outward. It searches. It learns. It reaches. That outward movement is often enough to lift your mood. You feel alive because you are moving again. Even small daily goals can shift how you see life. They create a sense of capability and control, the opposite feeling of helplessness. And this is one of the reasons structured goals can support emotional well-being. Tonight, tomorrow, micro-practice 1. Write one dream you have been holding in your mind for a long time. 2. Describe the first mile. What are the first 2 or 3 steps? 3. Picture yourself doing the steps, not the final outcome. 4. Spend 2 minutes in quiet visualization before bed. 5. In the morning, complete the very first step, no matter how small. In the next chapter, we go deeper into choosing the right goal. A goal that is ambitious, inspiring, and still realistic enough for you to see the path.